and they're pretty good. I think this last one had Ethan Embry. They have tons of like celebrity cameos, and they're keeping the aesthetic of the original movie with the comic-esque look and feel of it. They're pretty good show. Have you saw any of that?
I haven't, but I've heard good things about it, and I love the movie. I have a good friend that really liked it, and he was telling me about it, that I needed to check it out, but now I'm going to have to check it out.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I think like anything, there's some stories that are better than others, but overall, they're pretty solid and great, like practical effects and everything. And then
it's on AMC.
Yeah, AMC. And then if you don't have cable, you can get the AMC Plus app, and you get all this stuff on there. And then my next one is also on that app, or you can check it out on this if you have basic cable or digital cable, the AMC channel. But Eli Roth's History of Horror Season 3 just came back.
Oh, nice.
And I believe their first episode back for the season was talking about sequels, or sequels that don't suck is the title. Yeah, they talk about Scream 2, which we just went to see together, so that's awesome. I think Bride of Chucky, how it kind of reinvented like from the first three, like the trilogy, and then going into the more campy side of horror.
Okay.
And then there's a few other ones that I'm forgetting. Oh, and then also relating back to our main focus, they talk about the original Psycho 2 with Anthony Perkins.
Oh, nice.
Which I feel like those movies don't really get talked about a lot because they were done obviously after Hitchcock had passed away already.
Yeah.
But I believe, and then Tarantino comes out saying that he thinks that Psycho 2 is like better than Psycho, which is a bold statement.
I mean, it's good, but to say it's better than the first. But he is Tarantino.
Yeah. Controversy.
I gotta check. I haven't seen. I saw a couple of the episodes, like the first season and like an episode 2 or 2 in the second, but I gotta check more of that out.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Even just from like a history perspective, like there's a lot. They go into a lot of stuff it's pretty fun, especially as a genre fan. You'll definitely appreciate it, I think.
Gotta check it out, especially we're going into the spooky season.
Oh yeah. And that will, unless you have any last thoughts for weekly recommendations, that'll move us into our main focus, or your main focus.
No, I'm good.
Cool. All right, so this week we're talking about Psycho. It's rated R. It's from 1960. The runtime is 1 hour and 49 minutes, although it feels way shorter than that for some reason. And it's got a 96 on Rotten. It's written by Joseph Stefano and directed by Alfred Hitchcock, of course, starring Anthony Perkins, Vera Miles, Janet Leigh, Martin Balsam, and John McIntyre. For the synopsis, I wrote, a young secretary, Marion Crane, makes an ultimately ill-fated choice to embezzle $40,000 from her employer in Phoenix, Arizona. Fleeing the city shortly thereafter and trying to lay low, Marion finds herself at the doorstep of an unorthodox motel ran by a seemingly harmless young man named Norman. Being adapted from a novel of the same name that was released in 1959, the Psycho property was looked at as a huge risk, with Paramount thinking it would be a flop. They refused to give director Alfred Hitchcock his usual budget, which prompted him to pitch the idea of shooting it in black and white for a less costly project, but Paramount still didn't want to give it the green light. So Hitchcock did the unthinkable. He shot on the Revue studio, lot and personally financed the film under the condition that he would have a 60% take from the film's negative, something that would pay off later as Psycho would become known as one of the very first slasher films that absolutely broke down the doors for multiple subgenres in horror, with studios being more open to wild and different ideas. Hitchcock would sell his shares in the film to Universal, which created a lengthy relationship between the two, with Paramount selling the remaining rights to Universal after a few years. This is why the original house scene in the film is a regular tourist attraction at Universal Studios Hollywood to this day. The film pushed the boundaries of what was accepted within cinema at the time, displaying things like premarital sex, cross-dressing, and of course cold-blooded murder, which brings us to the shower scene, which is arguably the most iconic moment for not only the film but for Hitchcock as well. When discussing the scene, it's important to mention that without Bernard Herrmann's score, the film would not have had the longevity or impact the way it currently does. The music cues are perfect, and it truly acts as its own entity throughout the picture. Made for a modest budget of $800,000, the film went on to gross $50 million, which in turn makes Psycho's success very important, as it's single-handedly brought various forms of horror to the mainstream audience and proved to the studios that the audiences were hungry for psychological horror themes. Thank you.
Hell yeah, dude. It's perfect. I tell you all the time that I like your write-ups for the movie, and that one was top tier.
Thank you, sir. It means a lot. But enough about me, man. I want to know why, out of all the movies you could have picked, you picked this one. So let's talk about why. What is your relationship with this film?
So I think I've seen this movie like dozens of times, so I can't even count. But the reason why I picked it is because I think I told maybe like Sandy this, but I don't even think I told my mom this. But when I was little, my parents used to drop me off at my nana's house all the time. And for like the night or like the weekend, and she was big on like Hitchcock and like Universal monster movies, stuff like that. So I'd sit there and watch them with her, and she's the one who introduced me to this film for the first time. I couldn't have been no older than like 10 or 11, and there I am sitting with my nana like watching this, and scared the shit out of me. But so that's why I picked it. And yeah, like since that point in time till now, like it's probably my favorite genre. Yeah, and it opened up new types of media for me that I didn't think I was gonna like, never was into before I saw that movie. But yeah. What about you? What's your kind of relationship to the movie?
Much like you, I was shown this by my grandmother for the first time, and I was probably like 8 or 9, super young, and she's like, yeah, like super into just Hitchcock in general, and she's like, oh, like you think you like scary movies, but you don't know like what horror is, and just pretty much trying to school me, right? And then so she shows me Psycho. And then it's off-putting because it's in black and white, obviously, and then you go into the film and you're like, why is this called Psycho? Because for the first half of the film, it's just like this chick like steals money and then goes on the run, and you're just like, well, is she supposed to be the psycho? Like, what's going on? And they leave you kind of pandering as to what is the point of all this is. And then she gets to the motel, and then you meet Norman, who is like this kind of like good looking dude. He seems like like he likes Marion, and then when he goes back up to his like the creepy decrepit house in the back of the motel, you hear like his mother's like kind of screaming at him, and I feel like that's where the horror element comes in, because then you're like, okay, like the mother is like this deranged, maybe like schizo or whatever, and is like super jealous of her son, and then and then it ends up turning into Marion's murder, which is, when you're watching it for the first time with the music cues and everything, they really like don't set you up for that, especially for the time it was, like in 1960, like it was so forward thinking, like where they make you think, they give you like this false sense of safeness where you're like, this is our protagonist, there's no fucking way like that she's gonna be hurt, and then she gets into the shower, and then and we lose our main character who we've come all this way with, and then suddenly Norman kind of takes her spot, and then we start seeing things more from his perspective. And so from a filmmaking standpoint, I always found that so fascinating that Hitchcock would be that bold, to make something that's such a risky film,
I remember seeing it for the first time like at that age, and even at that age I was like, isn't there like half the movie? Like, what is going on? Why would you do this? But yeah, no, Hitchcock didn't give a shit.
And then the funny thing is that the movie, the first half of the movie is about her grappling with her bad decision of stealing from her boss, essentially, and her wondering what's going on. And then you have that like inner monologues going on in her head, what she's thinking, are the cops after her, all this kind of stuff. And then but then at the same time, it's like, then she's killed, and then we're kind of seeing everything, because at this point we don't know that Norman is our killer yet. So then he takes the kind of the mantle as a protagonist, and is and we start seeing like him trying to like clean all this up. But the point of me bringing, the point I'm trying to make is that the movie seems about like it's supposed to be about the money, and we're thinking like that Norman is going to end up finding the money and then trying to keep it, but he's so not, like, he could care less about any of that stuff, that he doesn't even notice like the weight difference. I don't know if you even noticed this, but she had hidden the money in like a newspaper, right? And when he's disposing of Marion's body, he puts her in the trunk of his car, and then he goes and kind of scans the room real fast to try to find any like loose items that she might have left, like any clues. And so he takes her paper, and $40,000, you don't feel you don't feel a weight difference there. And he just throws it in the trunk, and then takes the car and puts it into the tar pits, I think it's supposed to be. So because it's black and white, I guess you can't see what it's actually supposed to be. It looks like tar to me, but so he never even knows that there's any kind of money, or that there was even an opportunity there, and then you have all of these other characters that come up to him, and they start accusing him of like that he killed her for the money, or he's hiding her so he can keep the money, and he literally does have no idea what they're talking about the entire time.
I think I noticed that like the couple times, like my maybe second or third time watching it, like just like you said, like you don't feel that weight difference in that newspaper. Like it's solid. It's not, newspapers aren't supposed to be like that, but I guess he wasn't even. I wasn't even on his mind to check anything like that.
It's like at the end, I think they even say it where they say this was a crime of passion, not for profit.